Hello friends, welcome to Math Opera. Myself Salil Gadgil. There is some confusion in dealing with exponents, especially when it comes to negative numbers. Add to it negative powers and the confusion increases. So in this video, I am going to explain how to deal with exponents, especially involving negative numbers and negative powers. Let's get started. So now we are going to deal with some examples of exponents where we have different combinations of the bases and the powers. So here if I look at the first example, it's minus a the whole raised to x. Do you notice that there is a bracket and minus a has been raised to x? What this would mean is that this minus a is your base and x is your power, and minus a the whole raised to x would mean minus a multiplied by itself x number of times, right? So that is the definition of exponents. So the base gets multiplied with itself the power number of times. So minus a the whole raised to x would mean minus a into up till minus a x number of times. Now the way you would evaluate this is you first evaluate the sign. So to evaluate the sign you would have minus into minus plus and so on. You would first compute the sign of this particular answer, and then you would multiply a with itself x number of times. So that is how you would compute this particular exponent. Now let's see what is the difference between the first and the second one. So visually, can you make out the difference? Yes, the difference is the brackets. The brackets are missing in the second case, whereas the brackets are present in the first case. So minus a the whole raised to x was here. Over here we have minus a raised to x. So what it means is this power of x now does not apply to this negative sign. It applies only to a. So minus a raised to x would mean I would first compute a raised to x, which is a into a and so on x number of times, and then I would append it with a negative sign. Now this is happening because I don't have a bracket here, and therefore the power of x does not apply to this negative sign. That is what it means. Now if I look at the third case, which is a raised to minus x, there is a negative power. So what do we do with negative powers? We find the reciprocal of the base. So the reciprocal of a is going to be 1 by a and that whole raised to x. So once you take the reciprocal, the negative part of the power vanishes, and therefore a raised to minus x is going to be, you take the reciprocal of a, which is 1 by a, that whole raised to x. So what this means is, it would mean 1 by a is your base and x is your exponent or power, and therefore this becomes 1 by a into 1 by a into 1 by a. How many times would you multiply this? You would multiply this x number of times. Now the numerator is 1 into 1 into 1 into 1, which is always going to remain 1, and therefore you can also write this as 1 multiplied by a into a into a into a. How many times? You would have x number of times. So this is how you deal with exponents when the power is negative. You find its reciprocal, you eliminate the negative part of the power, and then you evaluate exponents as you do normally. Now what do you think is going to happen over here? The base also has a negative sign and the power also has a negative sign. So how should we deal with this? What we should be doing here is first take care of the negative part of the exponent. Since the exponent has a minus sign, what we will do is we will first find the reciprocal of the base. So the reciprocal of the base is going to be 1 over minus a, and now that you have taken the reciprocal over here, the negative part of the exponent or the power simply goes away. So this becomes 1 by minus a the whole raised to x. Now this means since there is a bracket, it means that this power x applies to 1 as well as this power x applies to minus a. Now 1 raised to any number is going to remain 1. So I would write this as 1 and minus a the whole raised to x. So since there is a bracket, the power x applies to negative a as well, and therefore I would write this as negative a into negative a into negative a. How many number of times? X times. Right? So I hope that you understood the difference in all these 4 cases. If you were to summarize, you could say that if I have a bracket, the power applies to the negative sign as well, which is inside the bracket. If I don't have a bracket, then I just evaluate the exponent and append it with a negative sign. If I have a negative power, I find its reciprocal of the base and then apply the rules of exponents. And if I have a combination of negative base and negative power, I still find the reciprocal, and once I find the reciprocal, then I compute the power of x. So now in the next segment, let's take a few examples and apply these concepts there. So now let's take some examples and apply the concepts that we learnt in the previous segment. What do you think is minus 6 the whole raised to 3? There's a bracket here, so minus 6 whole raised to 3 would mean minus 6 multiplied with minus 6 multiplied with minus 6, 3 times because the power is 3. Now let's compute the sign first. Minus into minus into minus is going to be minus, and 6 6 are 36, 36 6 are 216. So minus 6 the whole cube is minus 216. Now let's understand what is 6 raised to minus 3. So when you have a negative power, you always find its reciprocal. So reciprocal of 6 is going to be 1 by 6 the whole raised to. Since you have taken the reciprocal, you eliminate the negative sign of the power. So it is 1 by 6 the whole raised to 3. 1 by 6 the whole raised to 3, since there is a bracket, it would mean that you raise 1 to 3. So 1 cube is going to be 1 divided by 6 raised to 6 is going to be 6 multiplied with 6 multiplied with 6. So this becomes 1 by 216. Now what is minus 6 the whole cube? Is there a bracket over here? No, there is no bracket, which means that the power of 3 does not apply to this negative sign. The power 3 applies only to 6. So I would leave this negative sign as it is and calculate 6 multiplied with 6 multiplied with 6. So 6 6 are 36, 36 6 are 216. Now over here you will notice that the answer in the first case and the third case is exactly the same, and that is happening because the power is a odd number. If you try this with an even power, say instead of 3 if you had a power of 2 in both places, then you would get different answers, and you would get different answers because negative 6 the whole raised to 2 would mean negative 6 multiplied with negative 6. There would be only 2 negative 6s, and that would come out to be positive 36 because minus into minus would be plus and 6 would be 6 into 6 would be 36. Whereas the answer over here, had it been minus 6 the whole square, it would have been minus 6 into 6, with the answer would have been minus 36. So there would have been an answer difference in both the answers had the power been even. What would be minus 6 the whole raised to minus 3? The power is negative. So the first step is you find the reciprocal. The reciprocal is going to be 1 by minus 6. Since you have taken the reciprocal, you get rid of the negative sign. Now 1 raised to 3 is 1 divided by minus 6 raised to 3 is going to be minus 6 into minus 6 into minus 6. So it's minus 6 multiplied with minus 6 multiplied with minus 6, which is going to be 1 divided by minus 216. Plus divided by minus is minus, so the answer is minus 1 by 216. We never keep the negative signs in the denominator, we always take them to the numerator. So what would be minus 6 raised to minus 3? Is there a bracket over here? No, there is no bracket here. So that is the difference between these two cases. So what will happen is the negative sign remains as is. The power of negative 3 applies only to 6. So we would take the reciprocal of 6, which happens to be 1 by 6. Since you have taken the reciprocal, you eliminate the negative power. So the power becomes positive 3. Now this answer becomes minus 1 by 6 into 1 by 6 into 1 by 6. If you calculate, this would be minus 1 by 216. Again, the answers in these two cases are exactly the same because the power is odd. If you try this with even powers, you will get different answers. And what would be 6 cube? 6 cube would simply be 6 multiplied with 6 multiplied with 6, which is 216. So I hope that you now understood the relation between the negative bases and the negative exponents, how to deal with them. If you understand the meaning of negative power, it gets easier, and if you understand the meaning of this bracket, it is going to get easier solving exponents. If you see negative powers, take the reciprocal, remove the negative power and work with the positive power. If you see a bracket, apply the power to the whole base, and that would apply to the negative sign as well. I hope that this particular segment made these concepts really clear. So I hope that this video made math seem more interesting. In the next video, I'll come up with some new